Science. Technology. Medicine. Health. These four things make the world go round. Without them, we couldn't exist. This is the Monday Science Podcast, a weekly show bringing you the latest research and news in science, technology, medicine, and health, answering your questions or finding experts in the field to answer them. Your host is a pharmacist, an award-winning scientist. She leads her own research group and is the founder of King's College London Fight the Fakes. A tad bit on the qualified side. Welcome to Monday Science. Here's your host, Dr. Bahija Raimi Abraham.
Welcome back to Monday Science. Hope you're having a great start to the week. Feels like it's been a while since I've spoken to the listeners. I hope you're all doing well. What have I been up to? Well, my silence has actually been because I've been working on a grant. If anyone follows me on Instagram, I'm documenting my grant writing journey over the last since the pandemic. And I had a grant deadline on Friday, 4 p.m. So that was done, but it took a lot out of me. I have another grant to go for as well with a deadline in November, which I've been working on. But this isn't meant to be about me waffling on about grant writing. What have I been up to? Well, STEAMEd Collective. So STEAMEd Collective is a social enterprise I started during my postdoc when I was at UCL. And the aim initially of STEAMEd Collective was to engage the public with STEM research through the arts, particularly street art, because I still am quite obsessed with street art, and I found it quite an interesting tool and platform to engage the public with STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and mathematics research through the arts. I paused the enterprise for a little bit because when I was getting towards the end of my postdoc, I just couldn't manage running the business and running the social enterprise whilst also trying to find a job and trying to get my career up and running. I think just before I went on my secondment, I applied for a grant. That didn't go well. I didn't get the grant. I feel like I talk a lot about the failures of my grants, but hopefully one day I'll talk about the successes. And well, I have had some successes, but still. So SteamEd Collective was on pause for a little while. And then my plan was to revive the enterprise last year, but then a pandemic hit. So that didn't go to plan. But you can check out SteamEd Collective. So the website is steamedc.com. The Instagram or the social media you can access through there, but that is essentially steamed.collective. And with SteamEd Collective, it's on the verge of reviving it and making it more of a collective, so a hub and a source for people who are interested in STEAM interdisciplinary. So STEAM is STEM with A, so including the arts. And this is still an area of growing interest, an area of growing interest for a lot of people. And it was off the back. I don't know why I'm talking so much about the Med Collective today, but it was off the enterprise also I found was a sort of like a home for people people in STEM, students in STEM who felt like they were STEM professionals or budding STEM professionals, but also artists as well. And you find there are a lot of scientists who have artistic talents, and equally there are a lot of artists who are very scientific in how they think. I think the weirdest way I could probably explain was actually the film Interstellar. I found with the film Interstellar, the only people that seemed to understand it properly were scientists or artists, but maybe that's just the network of people that I was hanging around. So anyway, why am I talking about SteamEd Collective? I spent way too long talking about SteamEd Collective. I'm talking about SteamEd Collective because we're starting a Jobs in STEAM series starting from next month. And the series will consist of career talks, panel discussions to provide inspiration and advice to all those who are interested in careers in STEAM. They're going to be 60-minute webinars that are once or twice a month. Please note that once or twice is because it's subject to my diary, but it's once or twice a month where participants will get an opportunity to learn from a range of individuals and also ask them questions. So the first event, which is on the 11th of November at 12 p.m., is with representatives from a company called VacTrack, and this is a digital immunity wallet, and it serves as a patient-centric platform for vaccine guidance and seamless tracking. And you can find out more about how this app was developed during the pandemic. We're still in a pandemic, but during the last 2020 to date with the co-founders Gabriella Hakim and Emily Gaisley. The second event, which is on the 2nd of December, and this is with a company called Metalchemy. And Metalchemy is a London-based nanotech startup that strives to develop green solutions for a brighter future. And so you can find out more about nanotechnology, entrepreneurship, and STEAM interdisciplinary with the CEO and co-founder Federico Trotta. Find out more at www.steamc, so steamedc.com. Just a reminder that we still have the Simprove Monday Science discount. How are you guys enjoying that? Please let me know because I want to be able to offer more opportunities such as that. And thank you so much to Simprove for supporting. They supported the probiotic series with Professor Simon Gaisford. Those were some great episodes, episode 89, no, episode 90 and episode 91. And those episodes were sponsored by Simprove. So Simprove is a company and Simprove is a product as well. It's a live and active bacteria liquid supplement designed to support your gut. And Monday Science listeners can still take advantage of a 15% discount on Simprove's 12-week program using the MONSCI15, that's MONSCI15 discount code. You can find out more at www.mondaysciencepodcast.com/listen. You can use that opportunity to listen to not only the probiotic series episodes, but all the episodes. I don't know. Relax, listen, just take some time, make a cup of tea, and listen to Monday Science. The other update I wanted to give, so I was on another podcast, Hacker Valley Studio, which is hosted by Ron Eddings. So you may remember Ron was on Monday Science talking about cybersecurity. That was episode 89. So I was on the Hacker Valley Studio podcast, which is hosted by Ron and his co-host Chris Cochran. And their podcast explores human condition to inspire peak performance in cybersecurity. Their podcast explores the human condition to inspire peak performance in cybersecurity. It's a really interesting podcast. Also, I like the fact that it's very conversational and they get guests from different expertise. And for somebody like me, long-standing listeners of Monday Science will know that I'm very interested in tech. Even though we haven't had many tech episodes this year, actually, and that will be changing next year. I've got some very interesting topics lined up. But I'm very interested in tech, and it's so like what I really like about Ron and Chris is that they're both cybersecurity experts and are so good at just explaining it and explaining the topics. And you would have heard in episode 89 with Ron when he was talking about cybersecurity. I mean, I was freaking out throughout the whole episode because, but it was just really great. And they were kind enough to invite me on their podcast to talk about me, well, talk about my career today. And basically, I was actually essentially talking about art, science, and nanotechnology. And there's a little bit of a link to today's episode. And in and one of the things that was really so and I remember in there when I was speaking with Ron and Chris, we were talking a lot about nanotechnology and biohacking. And I remember just thinking, oh, like biohacking, interesting. Not necessarily, it's not my area of expertise per se, but I do find it an interesting topic. I say per se, it's not my area of expertise at all, but it's a topic that is of interest. So we had a discussion about that, which was cool. And I think it was Chris that kept talking about nanobots. And I was thinking about nanobots from the things that I have heard of nanobots from, so drug delivery, mainly during my postdoc. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. It was really like, oh, but what's the potential of nanobots really happening? Well, they are already available. So it was an interesting discussion. And last week I went to see, not last week, the week before, I went to see the latest Bond film, No Time to Die. There was a whole conversation about nanobots in there. So I realized that there was a bit of a link. And I love, like, I don't know if anybody else is like me, but when I go to not even just the cinema, anything that I watch, if there's anything sciencey in there, so actually I'm not sure if everybody does this, but when I watch anything, like if there's just anything sciencey in there, and especially if it's something that's around my area of expertise or area of research interest, I get so excited. I'm like, oh, it's amazing. Let me read more. And the beauty of having a platform such as Monday Science is that I can not only just research it and enjoy it myself and learn about these various different topics or refresh my memory, but I can also share that with you. That's basically what today's episode is going to be about, which is it's not too long, but we're going to be talking about nanobots. So you would know that I'm a Bond fan. I'm trying to be specific in saying I'm a Bond fan, not specifically a Daniel Craig fan, but one in the same. And for those who don't know, I was actually an extra in Skyfall many, many years ago. This was during my PhD. So I had wanted to be an actress. That's what I wanted to do. I wouldn't say I didn't want to go to university. It wasn't that. I just wanted to be an actress. And I ended up studying pharmacy first and then got distracted and was like, I'm going to do a PhD. When I was writing up my thesis and finished all my experiments and writing my thesis, I remembered the ambitions and the passions I had before PhD life and, well, clearly before even just university. I auditioned to join a casting agency, which was great. And one of the first gigs was this Skyfall as an extra. And I remember I did the film, and my mum was like, "Oh, maybe you need to let them know." When I got my PhD, oh, don't forget you need to let Skyfall know, let James Bond know that you're now Doctor. I was like, I'm not even in the credits. So it was a great experience. What was really cool was that I remember I had to, because anyone who's done any film work, there's a lot of start and stop. You get up, you move scene. So I'm in the tube scene and it was really cool. Like, I mean, they fed us loads, which was great. You had to come off the tube, down the tube, reset, then because there's in Charing Cross station, there's a little bit of platform that they use. So you probably notice in films, whenever they're on the tube, it's usually like for those Londoners, it's usually the Circle line, generally speaking. And that's because that's the tube that they have in that little stretch of the tube station. So you enter, if I remember correctly, you enter through Embankment, I think. It's through, oh no, is it through Charing Cross Hotel? I can't remember, but it's you enter through Charing Cross tube station and then it's just off the side. You can't see it. So that was a really cool experience. We got to see Daniel Craig. So it's the tube. Oh, again, sorry, spoilers there's the notification, spoilers. And he was really, really nice to everyone. So I was having a moan saying, I can't believe Daniel Craig's not even here. And then he walks past us saying, morning, ladies. And we're like, oh my God. He was so nice. He was so lovely. And because on the tube scene, so for those who have seen Skyfall, for those who haven't, sorry, spoilers coming up, but for those who've seen Skyfall, that he goes, so he comes on to Daniel Craig. Bond comes onto the platform and is told that Javier Bardem is on the tube. Then he has to jump on the tube. And then when there's a whole thing and he sees him on the tube, and then he comes off the tube and he has to push people out of the way. So I'm in the scene where he's on the tube and walking up and he spots Javier Bardem. And then I'm in the scene, but you can't see me. Look at me, really clinging on to my 2 seconds of fame. But I'm in the scene where he's coming off and he's pushing everyone like away from the platform. And it's so amazing. Like you can see why films cost so much. It's one of another big pastimes of mine is to look at the when a film comes out, I like to go on Wikipedia and look and see like the budget and see how much they've made in the box office, because it's very interesting to see how everybody needs to get paid for the film, and there's a reason why these budgets are so. But he was really kind. Like it's all structured and planned. So okay, when he comes off the tube, he's going to touch this person, that person, and because it's quite forceful, not forceful, but it's like it's acting, but it's also live. You got to push people out of the way a bit. So it was really nice. They just said, "Oh, he's going to touch you. He's going to touch you. Do so. Just be careful. Sorry." And he was so polite. His stunt double, he being Daniel Craig, sorry, and his stunt double was really good. So why am I waffling on? I'm waffling on about Bond and making my time many years ago versus now. But actually, sorry, just to add, what was interesting about that experience for me was so when we had to, even when we were in the tube and we had to reset. So I had my thesis chapter and I was trying to, because with the plan that I would go when I get back home, I would type it up. And this was over a couple of weekends. So Saturday, Sunday, Saturday, Sunday. So we all sort of got to know each other. And it was really cool. People are like, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I've just finished it. Like I'm a scientist. I just finished my PhD. And it was so amazing to get to speak to people about my research and science. And we just had all these really cool discussions in the tube whilst filming Skyfall. I mean, it's an amazing experience. So that was really cool. But anyway, so I've been a fan of Bond before that moment, but it was just great. So let's talk about the recent film, No Time to Die. It's in the cinemas at the moment. It's a great film, but it's also Daniel Craig's fifth and final Bond film. Very, very sad. Now, I'm not going to give too much away because I want to keep the conversation focused. I mean, to be fair, I've made the whole conversation about my experience on Skyfall, but I'd like to keep the conversation more focused around the nanobot side of things, just because some of the questions that I've even been asked is how real is this, something that could really happen? Is it current science? Was it just fictional science? Is it something that could actually happen or is happening, or technology that can be developed? So I thought it would be quite cool to talk about it. But also I just find the whole concept of nanobots and these sort of potential bioweapon systems and all that stuff is very interesting. Okay, so I'm going to try not to give too much away, even though I feel like I may have already. So apologies, but spoiler, spoiler, I've covered myself there. Okay, so in No Time to Die, James Bond, aka Daniel Craig, or I should say Daniel Craig, aka James Bond, faces a new type of warfare, a novel bioweapon. And it's nanobots, which act like a virus spreading from person to person, that if it gets out into the real world, can have very serious implications. Now, what was interesting, so my journey into reading up about James Bond and nanobots, I've discovered a very interesting world of academia that is centered around James Bond. So, firstly, there is a journal, an actual peer-reviewed journal called the International Journal of James Bond Studies. I just check it out. The International Journal of James Bond Studies. The website is www.jamesbondstudies.ac.uk. I love it. It's got an ac.uk email address. For those who don't know, ac.uk is reflective of an academic account in the UK. So, the International Journal of James Bond Studies is an academic peer-reviewed journal that's dedicated to publishing interdisciplinary scholarship on all aspects of Ian Fleming's James Bond franchise. The journal is very interesting. I'm just going to look at, they've got 4 volumes so far. Volume 1, they had 2 issues. So just as an example of some of the articles, something James Bond and the End of the World. That's some of the articles from this year. A licensed troubleshooter, James Bond as an assassin. Oh, those ones are research papers, and then they've got reviews. Review of Ian Fleming and the Politics of Ambivalence. So those are reviews. Let's have a look at their volume 1. Let's have a look. Sorry, so volume, which was in 2017, and the first article, "You're a kite dancing in a hurricane, Mr. Bond. The elemental encounters of James Bond." I should have said that with a bit more of a Bond accent. "Of migrants and men, networks and nations in the millennial Bond text." Oh, this is a great title. "Mr. Bond, I've been expecting you. The cinematic inaugurations of a new James Bond." That's a really good title. I'm in awe of people who create these amazing titles. I'm just going to read one more. Let me see. This is a really cool journal. Let's look at one of their latest. This is volume 4, issue. Oh, let's live and let evolve the James Bond titles. Great. Let's see. Oh, this is their latest article. Old dog, new tricks. James Bond's digital chaos. Love it. So anyway, check out the International Journal of James Bond Studies. That's www.jamesbondstudies.ac.uk. Have a read of some of the articles. So I came across that. These are the kind of ones that I read, the articles I read. So I came across that website, that journal, sorry, it's a peer review journal. I couldn't see what the impact factor was for that. And then I came across a very interesting article. This was actually from Twitter, and it was in a journal, Travel Medicine and Infectious Diseases. The title, "No Time to Die, an in-depth analysis of James Bond's exposure to infectious diseases." I mean, it's amazing. Great title. So the Journal of Travel Medicine and Infectious Disease is actually a well-respected journal. Impact factor 6.211. Very good. And in this journal, this article is hilarious. I put the the link to this article in the episode description. So the article in question, "No Time to Die, an in-depth analysis of James Bond's exposure to infectious diseases." The authors explore their hypothesis, which is that agents preoccupied with espionage and counterterrorism may, at their peril, to correctly prioritize travel medicine. I mean, it's just a great article. I don't want to, well, I doubt I would bore you by reading the introduction. I just want to highlight one sentence. Actually, the first 2 sentences from this article. "Life as infectious disease researcher is indisputably exciting." Actually, 3 sentences. "Daily encounters with life-threatening microorganisms, academic competitors, hostile reviewing committees, and extensive international travel can make for a thrilling. International espionage is possibly the only profession that overshadows our branch of academia in these respects." I mean, I need to meet these authors. I really do. I really do. The article, as I said, is split into 6 sections. Section 1, Nightfall, Sexual Health. Section 2, The Man with the Golden Gut, Food Safety and Infections. Section 3, A Flu to a Kill, Air and Droplet-Borne Diseases. Section 4, The Fly Who Loved Me, Arthropod-Borne Diseases. Section 5, Other vector-borne diseases and neglected tropical diseases. And last but not least, Section 6, Tomorrow in the problem of poor travel preparation. Please check out this article, "No Time to Die, an in-depth analysis of James Bond's exposure to infectious diseases." I have put the link in the episode description, but if you just search that title, no doubt the article will come, and it's open access, so it's free for all. So onto the film now. I hope this is even just the articles themselves is just very entertaining. So let's go on to the film. So it's important to remember, I'm going to try my best, as I keep saying. I feel bad because I keep saying I'm going to try and avoid all these spoilers, but here we are. But so we have to remember that this film is actually meant to be released last year, 2020, like so many things, so many plans, so many things we all wanted to do. So this film is meant to be released last year, but it was pushed back because of. And there's been some speculation that the plot was changed due to the pandemic. And there are threads on Reddit. Now, I find Reddit very confusing at times, but I do try and go on there to understand things, and it's quite an interesting place to be. So, those of you who might be into Reddit, check it out. But there were some threads on Reddit, and I got this information from an article in Lad Bible, which I will share again. Everything is all in the episode description, so just take a look. But there's some threads on Reddit where people have identified that nanobots is only said 3 times in the film, and each time it's off screen. So why that's important is they feel like they feel that actually the sort of weapon was going to be a virus, like a disease X type of thing, like a synthetic virus, lab made virus. And the reason why it's interesting that nanobots is said off screen is because that would suggest that they just had fill in, dub that in, and add that the phrase or the term in, and just suddenly delete anything that said virus. So somebody commented, a virus which can target genes makes more sense than a robot which can. If the robots can last your whole life, how are they powered? How do the robots replicate? How do they sample your DNA? Bioengineered virus makes more sense. I don't think that person is a scientist, but it's a valid statement. But we're going to talk a little bit about how it could be possible. Let's see. Just to note that the director of this film said back in April last year, said that he wouldn't be making any changes to the final cut, even though he wouldn't be making any changes to the final cut, even though the release date has been delayed. So this would suggest that any of these theories are unfounded. But read more about it in the Lad Bible article that's in the episode description. So just an overview of the film. So James Bond, Daniel Craig, as I mentioned before, faces a new type of warfare, a novel bioweapon, and it's a nanorobots which act like a virus spreading from person to person. The nanobots don't kill, or even in some cases make everyone or even make everyone that's infected ill. That's not always the design. Instead, they spread until they reach their target, and they can be programmed using the DNA of a specific person or people. And the problem with these systems, there's these nanobots in the film, is that people may not know that they're carrying the disease, the nanobot, and pass it along. Okay, so what are nanobots? Well, nanobots are nano-sized robots. That's essentially what they are. And they are actually I'm going to give you some small examples of how this is a growing area of research in the real world. So we're stepping out of Bond now for a little bit. I'm not really going to debate too much as to how likely that nanobot system is. Probably need to get somebody to come and talk about it. But let's step out of Bond. We've done enough Bond now. So nanoscale robots, and they are robots that carry out a very, very specific function. They're well in the nanoscale. So when people say in the nanoscale, you would generally think nanoscale is anything less than 1 micron. But nanoscale is actually it's a whole thing about the definition of nanotechnology, true nanotechnology. And it's all like if it's less than 100 nanometers. And it is an emerging area of technology. And I mean, it's of interest in many different fields. So I remember conversations about nanobots, so micro and nano robots or micro nano robotics. This was around 2015 during my postdoc, because there was a paper that was published about it was a video. They had a video alongside, and it was these nano robots that were swimming and using if I remember correctly, the nanobots were made from a certain material that behaved in a certain, when in water, it behaved in a certain way, which allowed these systems to move. And at the time, my interest was in drug delivery. So this is how I've seen these systems being. But they're really with these kind of nanoscale technologies, there's lots of interest in looking at nature. So this is doing something called biomimicry. So when you look at how nature works and you try and see if this can be used to solve human problems. So for example, an interesting thing is looking at how polymers swell, or even just how anything swells when hydrated. So when you put something in water, how does it behave? Does it expand? Does it shrink further? And with the way it expands, can you use that to have movement overall, like macro scale movement based on these various different properties? So this can be For example, again, I have to relate it to drug delivery. Well, I don't have to, but I'm relating it to drug delivery as my point of reference. And this would be where, let's say, you've got two different polymers with two different swelling behaviors when you put it in water, or let's say hydration and swelling, and you put it in an aqueous environment, and let's say one swells quicker than the other, and it means that maybe you get a different shape of that system, which then means that the drugs would be released in a different way. So this is how I've seen this kind of nanobot technology be used, where you kind of use this biomimicry. So you look and see how a material would behave. But there are other people that use this technology in different ways, and it is a rapid growing area of research, also in computer science and electronics, so many different things, and it's of global interest. But what's been interesting is looking at how these systems are made. So we had a project, this was in collaboration with UCL School of Pharmacy. We had a project where we wanted to look at what's like the resolution that you can go to with 3D printing to get into the nanoscale with polymers, to see if that could be a system that's for drug delivery. The project didn't really take off, so I've put the idea out there if somebody is interested. But anyway, I mean, if somebody is interested, get in touch. It would be great to pick that research idea back up. But so they're different with these systems, these nanobots. You've got to think about how are they going to be made? What technology will give you the best resolution to get effectively a nano machine? And I found there are lots of different ways that people are doing, and it's just, that would be a whole nother episode in its own right. But I found a very interesting nano manufacturing approach which could be of relevance to Bond. So this is something called Nubots, Nubots, and this is a nucleic acid bot. Nubots, which is an abbreviation of that for nucleic acid robots, are synthetic robotic devices at the nanoscale. And they're very interesting because the bot is designed with DNA strands to make these nanomechanical devices. And there's a whole different way that the system, the DNA strand, will then make like 2D, 3D structures. There is this system with making these nanomechanical devices of DNA strands could open up the potential of application. There's a lot out there, a lot of information out there around micro and nanobots, where my go-to at some point, which it's not, I don't think is dated, but it's Imperial College. They have the Hamlin Centre at Imperial College London, and they used to have these nano and microbot seminars and series before the pandemic, which was really cool, and you should check them out. The website will be Hamlin Symposium. If you just look at Hamlin Centre, Imperial College London. But they also have the Hamlin Symposium on medical robots. They've still got videos from last year's talks. I'm actually going to start watching some just to get updated, because I haven't actually looked in this area in a while. And you can find that at hamlinsymposium.org. Very, very interesting stuff. So in a roundabout loose way, I guess I'm saying yes, that nano are currently available. My understanding of them are more in the drug delivery world. So that's to deliver targeted drug delivery. So where the nanorobots that are drug loaded are moving across the intestine in a very targeted and specific way to a specific site. There's that. But from what I know, there isn't anything on the market. However, this is an active growing area of research. This is an active area of research and a growing area of research. So there are lots of things going on in this space that I haven't covered. But I just thought it was an interesting starting point for this topic. And I've got put some references in the episode description to start you off on your own journey to learn more about nanobots.
You've been listening to the Monday Science Podcast, a weekly show bringing you the latest research and news in science, technology, medicine, and health. We hope you've gotten some useful and thought-provoking info from the show, and we hope you had fun along the way. We know we did. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on our website at www.mondaysciencepodcast.com. Shoot us an email at info@mondaysciencepodcast.com. Find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Monday Science, and access episode summaries at mondayscience.medium.com. See you next week on the Monday Science Podcast.